The countdown's on, MP.
Damo, the biggest and best wellness summit ever is fast approaching.
Don't miss out on the entertainment,
The education.
the edutainment that is the Wellness Summit.
Featuring for the very first time at the summit, the Merrymaker sisters, Carla and Emma Pappas, and the 2013 Bachelor himself, the incredible chiropractor and sharp mover, Mr. Tim Robards, plus all of your Wellness Couch favourites. And wait for it, Damo.
All 22 podcasts on the couch will be in attendance at the summit.
Wow, so take your digital Wellness Couch experience and make it a real-life one at the transformational, inspirational, sensational 16 hours of Powerhouse Wellness Summit at the Melbourne Convention and Exhibition Centre.
September 10 and 11. More information and tickets available at www.thewellnesssummit.com.
Now, before you go, Damo, there's a big competition on as of now. Every single person who registers before 11:59pm on Sunday, August 14, goes into the draw to win a double pass to the inaugural 2016 Wellness Couch Awards Night.
Amazing. You'll join the who's who of the Wellness Couch as we present for the very first time the best new podcast, most popular episode, most popular host, the best hair, of course, MP, most awkward moment, and many more sensational awards at this night of fun and wellness frivolity.
But you must enrol, folks, by August 14. Tickets at thewellnesssummit.com.
TheWellnessCouch.com, streaming wellness into your lives. This is Up for a Chat with Cindy O'Mara, Carren Smith, and Kim Morrison.
Here we are, up for a chat about the hottest things that are most important to you. I don't even know what I'm saying. Welcome to Up for a Chat. I'm Carren Smith.
And I'm Kim Morrison.
And our Cindy is away doing fantastic stuff, but Kimmy and I have got some amazing shizzle to talk to you about. And I think we've got, we've had like the most amazing couple of weeks. And it's been so full on with so much stuff. Kimmy and I were just actually having a quick catch up now. And I think that's why I had to start the whole introduction with, oh, stop it.
You're adorable. Oh my gosh. So much can happen with us when we're apart from each other for 4 weeks. It's insane.
I know. So you have been over in Paris and we've got so much to talk about that. There's been so much happening back here with Cindy and with me, and we've got so much to talk about with that. But there's something that I think is right at the forefront of most people's minds right now about what's happening in the world. And I don't know, like you log onto Facebook or social media and all I see is the giant battle between Hillary Clinton and what's his name?
Yeah, Trump.
Oh. And it's the most ridiculous thing that I've never seen anything like it. I thought our political battles were the most ridiculously childish, pathetic, gunslinging, mudslaying. I don't even know what else to say about it. But now that I'm seeing what's happening in the States and how ridiculous it is there, it's like our ridiculousness times 1,000. Mm. And then you look at everything else that's happening on the planet. Like even when you were overseas, Kimmy, there was that dreadful occurrence in Nice where that boy took hold of a truck and just decided to drive it through the crowd. Mm. And, you know, it was particularly close to mine and Matt's heart because where it happened was right where Matt and I stayed when we were in Nice a couple of years back. Yeah. So when we saw the vision of it, we were just like, no, you can't, not there. You can't do anything so tragic there. And it's the sad part about those sorts of occurrences, I think, is that it leaves a scar. It leaves a permanent emotional scar. And I wonder what the spiritual effect of that is and the energetic effect of that is. But that scar is there permanently now. It's never not going to be there. It's never not going to be a day that won't be remembered.
Do you know, it was really fascinating actually. Here I was in a beautiful part of the world, and I remember waking up that morning on Bastille Day and I looked out the window of my beautiful little room and I was going to go for a run, and I saw there was like a couple of vans filled with police in these vans outside this beautiful, quiet little town in Provence. And I kind of got a fright because it's not something that we down under really experience a lot, particularly in a really little quiet town called Seoul. So here I was, and I looked out and I thought, oh, maybe I don't feel like going for a run. And they were all getting in and out of these 2 trucks, and they had their guns, which is always a bit disconcerting anyway when you see that. But anyway, I was thinking, oh my gosh, what's going on? Anyway, we went down for breakfast, and I said to everybody, I didn't go for a run. I ended up doing a meditation instead. Isn't it funny? I kind of went into, I think I need to stay quite, within myself.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I'm sitting there at breakfast, and I said, did everybody notice the police outside? And everyone was like, oh, yeah, but it's just for the Tour de France, because the Tour de France cyclists were going around our village. So I was like, is that all it was, kind of thing?
Right.
Then that day we did a whole day of lessons and learnings, and then that night we all were in the little village for Bastille Day, which was just a beautiful little celebration. It was actually freezing cold that particular night for us. I don't know why the temperature just completely dropped. So it was quite airy. There wasn't lots and lots of people that they were expecting, and there was all these merry-go-rounds and these playgrounds and these little things for all these kids, but everybody was so cold. And it was a shame actually, because you could tell that people weren't out and about because of how cold it was. Anyway, I went to bed probably about 10 o'clock after another little rosé.
Darling, did you just cover the rosé?
Stop it. Anyway, we're sitting there, said goodnight, and my gorgeous roommate and I fell off to sleep. Well, for some reason, I had not put my Wi-Fi. I normally switch it off when I go to bed, and I hadn't switched it off. And at about 2:30, 3 o'clock that morning, all of a sudden I noticed my phone kind of flashing, and I looked, there was 8 messages. Hope you're okay. Oh, my gosh, it's terrible what's happened. Holy heck, Kim, are you all right? Please let us know. And I was like, wow, what's going on? And not one of those 8 messages actually had said what had happened. So then I go onto the BBC World, and I'm looking at it, and then I realise what's happened that evening, just a couple of hours beforehand in Nice. Now, we were 200 kilometres from Nice, but it felt really weird. Everywhere I travelled in France, everybody had massive machine guns, these young men dressed in army outfits with their fingers on a trigger. They walked in groups of 6, it seemed, at every train station. Everywhere I walked and came and everywhere we went, there was just a huge presence of police or military or whatever it was. And so for that to happen on Bastille Day, all around their independence, and then for this to occur, I thought about you instantly. I thought about the timing in life where we all are at certain times of the world when things happen. I mean, the last time I was in Paris, when I arrived, everybody's going, have you been to Paris before? And I had to say to everybody, the last time I was in Paris was the day Lady Diana died or was killed, or however you want to look at it, and I was 10 weeks pregnant. So my feeling of Paris and France was very different 18 years ago to what it was on this particular day. So, yeah, my darling, I have to, and I did want to ask you, because when I was sitting there, obviously far enough away from Nice to not be physically, mentally, emotionally involved, but from a spiritual level where you alluded to it just recently, because you know what, within 24 hours, Carren, the next minute on the news was that Turkey had been taken over with a military coup. Then there was, in Munich, there was gun slaying, there was knifings around somewhere else, two attacks in Germany. And all of a sudden I thought, I wanted to ask you, from a mental, emotional, but more importantly spiritual level, what is the karma on our planet? What is actually happening here? Have you given it any thought?
Do you know, it's funny actually that you should ask me that, because I do think of it a lot. And I try not to think of it from the context of suffering. I try not to let myself go to that, to really fall into that deep sadness, because then it's very hard for me to bring myself out of that. It's almost as if the planet becomes hypersensitive. You know, when we hear and see of things like that, it's almost like it becomes this hypersensitivity that occurs, and it forces us to stop and actually look and see what's happened. So, I think that from a spiritual perspective, there's a, well, Kimmy, it's such a complex issue. Like I look at the people who are perpetrating the crimes, and in Nice, whether it was terrorism or it wasn't terrorism, it was one crazed person in a truck who decided that they wanted to take out a whole bunch of people. We can make it race related, we can make it religion related, and there is a consistency in that nobody can ignore. There is a consistency in the terrorism attacks and those sorts of killings from a race and a religion perspective, but it certainly doesn't mean that everybody in that race and religion is tarred with the same brush by any stretch of the imagination. But I think that the part that we're missing as humans is that these people think that they're doing the right thing. We just go into this state of retaliation, or we go into this state of resilience and repair instantly. And these people think that they're doing the right thing. They don't think that they're doing the wrong thing. The way that they've been trained and the way that they've been conditioned, it's just more extreme to the way that we've been conditioned. I mean, we're hurting ourselves, we're hurting the animals, we are hurting this planet just as devastatingly. And we think that we're doing the right things, but our purpose is profit. Their purpose is religion, or their purpose is fanaticism, or extremism, for whatever the reason is. Everybody has their own purpose for the destruction that they wage on the planet, and they wage on themselves, and they wage on each other. It's just that these guys are just doing it more overtly, and they're actually taking out of a hell of a lot more people at the same time. Like actually taking them out, finishing them off, and doing a lot more injuring. Whereas ours is a very slow, insidious destruction, in the Western cultures. So I think that there's a new face of forgiveness that's actually necessary when we look at the destruction that we cause ourselves and the destruction that is caused through terrorism. I think that nobody is actually believing that they are doing the wrong thing. They believe that they're all doing the right thing. So in their mind, they're not looking for forgiveness. When they're not looking for love, they're not looking for compassion, they're not looking for support, they're not looking for anything other than, in actual fact, acceptance. Because what they believe they're doing is right. But there's this, without going into how, our governments inflame the situation, because a lot of the situation that we're in right now from a terrorist perspective is because of our governments and because of the battle over oil, profits, money, economic stability. All of that is over oil, and it's over the ownership and the right to claim it, which is where terrorism started in the first place.
Do you know, from I guess terrorism isn't a modern phenomena. I mean, It has been going on for centuries and centuries. And someone mentioned it when I was away. The whole Guy Fawkes thing was a failed attempt at reinstating a Catholic monarch. And I just thought, oh my gosh, here we were. We've always celebrated Guy Fawkes on November the 5th. But I never really thought about the symbolism and why we burned things and had firecrackers. And it's kind of weird and sick, really, when you think about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's certainly not a new phenomena, is it? And for you to for us to sit here in this world and say it's based on hatred, it seems, you just said something before, it's more politically or financially aimed. Is that the right way of looking at it?
It's where it's all started. Politically, financially, religion. It's been going on since God was in small pants almost, It's almost, and it's just that now we have far more sophisticated weaponry. But people were always taking each other out if they didn't agree. And now it's just that the weaponry is far more sophisticated and it's able to take out far more lives, and the impact is far greater. And because of social media as well, now we're seeing a lot more, whereas the media was very much in control of what we saw and what we didn't see. And now social media kind of trumps traditional media, so everybody sees everything. So now the media has to show it. And I think, I think that the whole way that it's being handled from a governmental perspective in the responses to terrorism, where they say, we will fight for our freedom, we will not succumb, you cannot take away our freedom. It's not that. It's not that people are saying, it's not that other religions are saying that they want to take away our freedom. Certainly there are beliefs about infidels and, who should and shouldn't be here. But I think that if we can look at it from the perspective of forgiveness is not what they're asking for. It's not forgiveness. It's just acceptance. And through acceptance can come harmony, where people can live in harmony with each other. Or if they can't live in harmony with each other, they just don't interact. They don't have an interaction necessity, but there's not the fear, and that's why it's called terrorism, because it's about terror. It's about creating terror in the hearts and the minds of the people that it affects. But the people who are actually doing it, they have the same terror. They have the belief that if they don't do this, then great dangers and great traumas will occur upon them. So they live in the same terror. They live in the same fear. So, I mean, you can imagine it goes directly against human instinct to kill people. And if somebody is in their right mind, I mean, if they're not in their right mind, it's a whole different conversation. But if somebody is in their right mind, to go against human instinct and to take the lives of many, or to take the lives of even one, there has to be something seriously happening in terms of brainwashing or conditioning, more is a better word, of conditioning to make the person believe that that's right. And to take their own life along with it,
So, the question I keep asking myself with terrorism and things like this, and we certainly didn't want to do this podcast as a depressing kind of conversation, but it's something that we've all talked about, and therefore it was something that's very important. But, has the whole war on terrorism actually made the world any safer, any more peaceful, any more happier? So what is the point of it, Carren?
Well, you think of everything that we go to war on. We go to war on drugs. We go to war on teenage pregnancy. We go to war on abortion. We go to war on political parties. We go to war on ourselves. We go to war on terror. We go to war on fast food. We go to war on bacon. We go to war, we go to war on just about everything. And everything that we resist persists. So if you look at the planet now, the planet is nowhere near as safe as what it used to be. And I think now, because it's the exposure of it is so prolific, that now there are more people finding license or seeing license in being able to take these extreme acts, because it is, there's so much profile around all of it now. So I think that, no, it hasn't made it any safer. I think all that it's done is it's made the planet collectively more in terror. You know what I relate this to, and it's a little bit left of centre, but when I was a kid, I grew up in South Africa, and I was right in the middle of apartheid when the blacks and the whites were 100% against each other. And I remember my brother made a comment when we first came out to Australia, and he said it was never hate. He said it was always fear. The whites were always fearful of the blacks because the blacks were so oppressed by the whites, so oppressed. They had no voice. They were second-class citizens. And that, stemmed from Dutch religion. And because of that massive oppression, there were some people in the black communities that wanted to fight for their own voice. They wanted to fight for their own place on the planet, and that fighting was aggressive because they didn't know what else to do. And when we were kids, we used to have burglar bars on the windows. My dad used to have to walk us to school, even though we only lived 5 houses away from school. And we could never be out without my parents. Even, when my dad's gone back to South Africa, he's been accosted. There's been knives pulled on him and guns, and, the tension there has been extreme. And I look at that and I think, it was never hate, because it's not, it's not a human instinct to hate. Fear, however, can disguise itself beautifully as hatred. And I think that there's this necessity, and and it's such a circular conversation, because I was looking at something the other day about the Russian President Putin. I don't know if you've seen that on social media.
Yeah.
He was talking to the Australian minister and saying, why... sorry, not the Australian, the American Minister of Defence, saying, are they intending to threaten Russia? And they said, no, we're not intending to threaten Russia. We just do what we do with the military to create jobs. And Putin started laughing and he said, you're very clever in the way that you manipulate your sentence. He said, but don't take me for a fool. He said, why would you be creating jobs in an industry that potentially threatens the life of the planet? Why would you want to create jobs in that industry? And see, unfortunately, it's that whole perpetuation of the fear which keeps people saying, yes, we need more protection, yes, we need more protection. But then, of course, in the end, it all comes back to a political and financial gain. Because if the governments and the newspapers and the media keep perpetuating that it's fear, that we need to fight for our freedom and that we need to hate these people and we need to stand up for ourselves, and, then that perpetuates the community's support of more gunfire, more machinery, more military, more, support. And then, of course, that creates the jobs, which creates the money, which then, eventually goes back to the shareholders who own those munitions companies and military companies and so on. And at the end of the day, when you look at the people who are the shareholders, they're the people who are in government. So, to think that it's actually it's a community issue now, for sure. Originally, it started through political drive and through religious drive, but now it's a community issue, and now it's also an energetic issue collectively on the planet. And unfortunately, we don't have a government that is foresighted enough or forward-thinking enough to put in place a recovery strategy.
When my first encounter with real terrorism, and our listeners will know, I'm not politically in tune, I'm not necessarily religiously in tune. I come from the mum at home with her kids and just wants a beautiful, safe place and a beautiful place that we can call home. And I'll never forget it. I'm sure many of our listeners will agree with this, but when the whole 9/11 attack occurred, I was sitting on my exercycle and I said to Danny, I'll never forget it, oh my gosh, look at this new movie. Look at this. Like, I remember just turning on the news and going, look at this movie of a plane going into a building.
Oh, bless.
And yeah, I know, how ridiculous. And he goes, what? And then he's looking at it and he goes, holy shit, Kim, that's not a movie. And all of a sudden I realised my little bubble of a world that I lived in was completely ruptured. And then when I started trying to understand, in the time that came afterwards, what was it all about? And, I've always questioned if Al-Qaeda's objectives were to destroy America. Well, obviously it just made them stronger on one level.
Absolutely.
But if the goal was to really intimidate America and create huge publicity around it, then I reckon that was a complete success.
Yeah.
So, it's so sad that these big powerhouses can use humans as these pawns, for want of another word, or to encourage and inspire people to want to do suicide bombings or to kill themselves in the name of a cause or a political edge. And I guess with the internet, we have such a different array. It's not just print and media and television now. It is a 24/7 global spectacle. So, I mean, for me, as an example, lying there at 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning getting these texts, I instantly go onto the internet, I go to the BBC, and there's it's already on the ground reports and film and footage. And I don't know, maybe I'm completely ignorant, but a part of me wanted to just, I'll give you an example. Fiona, the girl I was rooming with, she's Irish, so she's very, obviously aware of politics and Irish issues that they've always had there.
Yeah.
But she woke up and she goes, "Are you all right, love?" And I went, "Oh, gosh, Fiona, there's been a terrorist attack, it looks like, in Nice." And she goes, "No." And I said, "Lots of people are killed and, like this." And I just looked and she goes, "Oh, well, there's nothing I can do about it right now. Night, night." And she's literally rolled over and went back to sleep. Now, what could I do in that moment, lying there, worried, thinking about it, getting myself into a right stew? I'm not saying I didn't think about it. I'm not saying we should turn a blind eye. But look at the two reactions there of two people.
Totally.
And it was really interesting. And then when she woke up, I said to her, "Oh, my gosh, how did you go back to sleep?" And she goes, "Well, Kim, literally, my sleep's important to me. If I'm going to do anything about it, I need to make sure I've got all my wits about me the next day." And it was just such an interesting way of looking at it. But back to my point in hand,
Amazing.
we sit here in our little world, particularly for us in Australia and New Zealand. Terrorism does not seem to literally attack Australia and New Zealand. But the impact, the global impact, and the fear that you're talking about around travelling and where we go, am I right in assuming the greatest places hit are like the Middle East and perhaps Pakistan and India and Yemen and all of these places? Why is it those places that are attacked? Like, can you give me any reasoning around why is it those places that are the central universe of this terrorism?
Yeah, I don't actually know, and I do want to do a little bit of research into that because I can't understand why Paris and Nice and those sorts of places are being attacked, because there's a lot of I know it's political. I know that it's political. I've asked heaps and heaps of people about it, and it all comes back to a political supportive role that they play. But I don't actually know the detail of it, and I'd just be making it up if I did. But I think it fascinates me because I think I had a conversation with somebody the other day, and I said, why are they attacking small places? Like whether Nice was a terrorism attack or not, is still yet to be determined, or whether it was just one crazed person. But such beautiful small places, even like Paris, not so long ago. And I was talking to somebody and I said, is it because if they attack those places, they know that they don't have the firepower to respond? But if they attack America, which is where the great hate lives, America will annihilate them. And I said, is that why they go after these smaller places? And the person I was talking to said, absolutely yes. Because if they go after the actual target, they'll be annihilated. Whereas if they go after these smaller places, they get the publicity, they get the message across, and they're not under a great threat of retaliation. So I don't know whether that's true or not. I don't know. It seems very bizarre to me, I'll be honest. But I think that, I think if anything's going to shift, or if anything's going to change, it has to happen at the individual level. Because from a governmental perspective, it's not going to happen because there's too much at stake for them. And, if you think about our governments and even the American governments, they have very short terms in government and they're just doing the best that they can while they're there. They're not necessarily thinking about the next 25 years. They're just thinking about their term and the changes that they can make in their term to ensure that they get voted in next term. So I think if there's going to be any changes, it has to happen on a community level. And I think that, if we can somehow take greater responsibility for ending the war within, ending the war without, with everything, then it takes that that warring mentality out of the, and I'm going to say the 0 point field, but it's not there really. It's in the day-to-day activity of being human. It takes that warring mentality out. And instead of saying, oh, I'm going to throw love, I'm going to throw peace, that's not what they're looking for. None of us are, I mean, of course love is important, but love comes as a result of acceptance. And I think if we can be in a state of acceptance of ourselves, acceptance of each other, acceptance of Mother Earth, acceptance of everything, rather than being in resistance of everything, and we do that on an individual level, and then we do it in our families, like that beautiful poem that you speak of.
Yeah.
It starts with the person, then it goes to the family, then it goes to the community, and then it goes to the country, and then it goes to the world. So it's like there's no other way to create forever change. No one's going to do it for us. And unfortunately, the circumstances are the way they are. And for us to be in a state of resistance, meaning being at war with terrorism and being at war with people who are different to us, it doesn't make any changes. All it does is it exaggerates the problem. Because if you think you're right, Kimmy, you imagine this, if you think that your belief about something is right, like, peppermint oil, if you think that your belief about peppermint oil is right, and then I come in guns blazing telling you that you're so wrong, you're so bad, you don't know, you're going to defend yourself, aren't you? I mean, you're going to, and everybody's going to do the same thing. So
I think it's really important. I think it's really interesting what you just raised there, that the world of terrorism, maybe it is just an outward reflection of what's really happening on the inside. I mean, ultimately, each one of us, I'll never forget Jacqueline. Any of you have listened to Jacqueline's interview. It's probably, I think Carren will be going back about 18 months now that we interviewed beautiful Jacqueline. But she's very big on living by 5 truths or 5 philosophies for living. And one of them is truth. So always tell the truth, always be your truth. The truth is what truly matters. And then I guess that's up for even grabs, because what some people believe is truth, other people may not believe in truth. But I guess fundamentally what she's talking about is tell the truth. There's no point lying. She has another one that she talks about, which is the right conduct. So for us to each live a truly whole life, if we can live with right conduct, treat people with kindness, look after one another. Maybe for men, opening doors for women could be seen as right conduct. Maybe saying thank you for a meal or, serving others. Right conduct is being a good person and doing the right thing as far as being a good human being is concerned. She talks a lot about peace, that peace is one of the most important things for us all to abide by. Peace within, first and foremost, so practicing stillness, really being aware of what it is to have quietness and the essence of stillness, which is, I think the way she explained it to me is the more still we are, the more we hear and the more we're able to understand. So stillness and peace is very important to her. And then, of course, love. I mean, without love, it is incredible how, as a universe, as a people, as an individual, I read this amazing quote the other day, and it just, it really hit home for me in a situation of what, the absence of love. None of us realize how important it is until we realize without it, it can actually make the human mind go crazy. It literally, they've done hideous tests on monkeys that when they're born, they're not touched and they're not allowed, and they die very, very quickly. And we only have to see that with neglect within the human race to see without touch, without love, the human mind can go crazy. We literally go insane without love. Mm-hmm. And then her final point is, or her 5th truth to live by, or 5th fundamental principle to live by, is non-violence. And she said that's one of the biggest. But for her, non-violence isn't just about whether or not you smack somebody as a parent or whether or not you hit somebody out of sheer anger and frustration. It's not just violence in the streets or driving erratically. To her, it came back to yelling at somebody is a form of violence. Saying nasty things about somebody is a form of violence. It was very important to her that we put up signs around our house, and I've only just really noticed that I've taken them down, and that's because even when the children were very little, we had signs all around the house. We just printed them off on a photocopier that said, "Speak softly." And that was our way of interpreting non-violence. So, I asked her very vehemently, what did she think about, adults smacking children, parents smacking a child that's misbehaved? And she felt it was totally unnecessary. And I said, but what about a child that goes to touch something and a parent just casually touches, smacks the hand? No, and she said, no, it's a form of violence. She said, that's parenting with fear. In other words, you teach the child to be afraid of doing it rather than being wise about it. And I'm like, I don't know, sometimes as a parent, you really want to teach a child that's a no-go zone, and until they're intelligent enough to understand why, then when I look at the animal kingdom, when a mother lioness is getting annoyed with her cubs, she'll nip them or she'll whack them or she'll... I don't know. Kind of not sure about that one, but I could understand. Not that I smack my children, but there was a time when Jacob was very little, and I remember smacking his hand when he... I can't remember exactly what he'd done, but there was something, and I remember smacking it. And I don't know
bet you feel like smacking him nowadays too, though.
I think I'd end up more hurt. But there was a moment, and I can't believe I'm going to share this. I don't know if I've shared it, but I do remember having a very poignant moment around this point of non-violence as a mother. I was really tired. I had 2 young children. They were both under the age of 4. I had, I was writing book. Danny was away. We were renovating a house. Like, seriously, I felt like the world was imploding at one point. So I was exhausted. We got up in the morning. The kids weren't doing as I was asked. They were erratic and full on. And I'm sure many mums and dads listening to this will understand my dilemma when you ask them to do something, they're not. Then they were fighting and arguing amongst themselves. And then Taylor had taken something of Jacob's and he'd done something back at her. And anyway, by the time I got them in the car, they were both really fractious and annoyed. And then the next minute, Jacob was trying to pinch Taylor. She bit him. He then turned around and absolutely whacked her. And I've turned around from the front seat of the car and turned around and so cross, grabbed Jacob's hand, and I've gone, as I'm smacking him on the hand, how many times have I told you do not smack when you're angry?
Oh, no.
And the poignancy in that moment, the absolute horror I felt in myself and the remorse instantly that I felt as a mother, smacking my child angry and telling him not to hurt someone else because he's angry. I don't know if you can imagine it, but if I was like this, oh my gosh, I turned around and sat there, absolute tears running down my face about what a terrible mother I was, about how awful I was and how much I'd failed, and that, I've always believed if the universe had a camera on you and it was shined out to the world 24/7, would you be proud of your behaviour? Would you do the things that you do or say the things that you say, particularly to partners and to children perhaps, or people that we love the most? If that was being beamed out to the world, would you be proud of it? And in that moment, I can honestly say to you, I sat there, and in a way, the reason why I bring it up is surely if we do not get a grip on non-violence from an inner place, a place of who we truly are in our families, in our relationships, in our work, then how can we sit here pointing fingers at ISIS or Al-Qaeda or I don't know, the PLO, whatever it is, if we can sit there pointing fingers, is it not the same to turn around? And I'm not suggesting that any of us would go out and wanting to drive a truck at 100k an hour through a street of populated people, but the war on terrorism, is it not just a reflection of the war that sometimes goes on within?
I think it. I can't imagine that it could be anything else. I can't believe that it could be anything else. I think it's almost as if, the great intelligent powers that be recognise that warring was a way of being inside of humanity, and then now they've just given us a way to make that come to life through terrorism, and given it a reason to occur, with oil and political, religious, financial, whatever. I think you're spot on. I mean, with kids and discipline and all those sorts of things, everybody's got to do what they think is right. And but I think it's even after you smacked Jacob, you then went to war with yourself, didn't you? So it's such a delicate issue, and it's such an internal experience that we're so unconscious of and we're so unaware of. But I think energetically and spiritually, it's the number one thing that, if anything, it holds us back from our growth and our enlightenment, if we're looking at it from that level, because it keeps us very trapped inside of a way of being that is in direct conflict to what we ultimately want. We ultimately want peace and love and acceptance and bliss and joy and playfulness and fun and experience and enthusiasm. I mean, we ultimately want all of those things. But this internal and external war with everything around us and everything inside of us, it's the number one thing that holds us back from the very thing that we want the most. And nobody else is going to give it to us. We have to take responsibility for creating it for ourselves. We have to take responsibility for the awareness of when it's occurring. I would encourage everybody who's listening to this show today, if you get anything out of the show, just bring your awareness to your behavior and to the conversations that you have between your two ears. Like, when you are cutting an onion. I noticed this myself the other night because I never cook. But I was making myself a vegetable soup the other night, and the onion made me cry. And I threw the onion in the sink and I went, damn onion, it was making me cry. It was stinging my eyes. And then I wiped my eyes with onion fingers. And it just made it worse. And I thought, no. One must love the onion. One must be in acceptance of the onion. One cannot hate the onion. Because just the week before, the onion was my best friend. I was rubbing it on my feet. It was next to my bed, and it was in my bloody onion-flavoured honey because I'd lost my voice when I was delivering Mindset Mastery.
I heard, darling. I heard. Oh,
dear me, dear. So, one day I'm loving the onion, and then the next day I'm hating the onion. So,
Well, therein lies the point, though. Therein lies the point.
Yeah.
Who we are in that moment, in that state, depends on our reaction to something. So, going back to just the example as a parent with Taylor and Jacob in the back seat, biting, pinching, hitting, and all that sort of thing. If I know myself when I'm well rested, when I'm happy, when I'm feeling not overwhelmed, when I'm feeling, or I've had a bit of a break, or I've done a walk on the beach, or I've been for a run, I'm a better person. And when those situations, when those conflicts, when those challenges arise, I handle them better. So, really, ultimately, how we behave determines on how well we're looking after ourselves, which comes back to self-care, which comes back to the self-respect and self-love that we have for ourselves, and making sure that those moments of going for a run or getting a good night's sleep or having a bath or doing all those little seemingly unimportant things actually combine to create a much more balanced, more happier individual who therefore may handle the challenges and conflicts with a lot more adult-like behaviour rather than critical or childlike or whatever it is. So I think you've made a really good point there. The onion was your friend when you needed it.
Yeah, totally.
I saw a quote on Facebook the other day. I never thought I was a bully until I heard how I speak to myself. I now think I owe myself a huge apology. It's really important that we take a look within. But here's another question I wanted to ask you. Throughout history, absolutely since the moment we knew there was Homo sapiens on this planet, we've always had wars. We've always had men battling or having the Colosseum with two men enter, one man leave mentality, or fighting for love, or fighting for a woman, or fighting for land, or fighting for oil, or like, are we delusional to think that just by loving ourselves more that would stop war?
Maybe, but I don't think we've ever tried it. And I don't know that there's any other solution. I think that there will always be conflict because there'll always be contrast. There'll always be my belief versus your belief, your thought versus my thought, what I know versus what you know. I think there'll always be conflict because there'll always be contrast. But I think that for the most part, we can potentially reduce the impact of it. And I think that, and I mean this in no disrespect at all, but if you look at the animal kingdom, it's the males that protect the territories. It's the males that protect the pride. It's the males that do that keep things together. So, it's the females that provide the nurturing and the love and the support. And I think that because potentially women are a little bit displaced, maybe we've kind of lost focus on the necessity to create that balance in the home and balance in ourselves. We've developed our masculinity dramatically, which, I think was necessary, but potentially we've gone too far, maybe. I don't know. I think that potentially that the development of the masculinity inside of the women and the loss of the femininity inside of the men means that it's, there's no femininity that's actually creating the balance, which is why the scales are out of balance now, because it is a natural male tendency. And I don't mean men. I mean, if we look at each one of us almost as an androgynous being, we have male and female inside of each of us. And it's our job to make sure that both are in balance. And I think because women have become so independent and it's, our lives have become very much driven by money and very much about success and very much about achievement and, having our place and having our say. And I think we've done an amazing job to bring about that sense of equality. But I think that the requirement is that we create that balance inside of ourselves. We can have equality, but we've got to have equality inside of ourselves. We've got to have balance inside of ourselves. And men have got to do the same thing. And when we do that, then we're able to have that natural ebb and flow of, love and contrast.
Oh, I agree. I couldn't agree with you more. I've always believed, and I teach this in my program, is that the true core, the fundamental, the essence of a woman is to nourish and nurture. And the key fundamental essence and role of a man is to provide and protect. And when we really honour those roles, and I'm not saying like you were saying, it's not to say that we can't provide and protect and men can't nourish and nurture, but the essence, the role, if we really honoured those true roles of what each of us do. Jacqueline reckons women should not be in the front line. Jacqueline feels that women should not be running countries. I mean, she's 92. She has strong beliefs. She's French. Go back and listen to her podcast if anybody's listening to this and you haven't. Look up. I think we said a day with Jacqueline, or just look up Jacqueline. It's just a beautiful podcast, wasn't it, Carren?
Oh, it was amazing.
She's just a beautiful soul. But interesting. I mean, I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's wrong. But I thought it was really interesting, her beliefs on the role that women are trying to do. And before, when you were talking about the animal kingdom and saying, if I think about a pack of lions, and I look at them and I think, the woman goes out and hunts, the female, the lioness, they're the hunters most of the time. But then I'm thinking, that's part of nourishing, isn't it? They're getting the food.
Yeah.
And
because he's not going to do it.
No, but he'll be the first to eat.
Oh, yeah.
But it's kind of, you're right. It's really important. Sometimes the natural rhythms of nature is something we could look back to. And Cindy's always talked about this, women loving getting back in the kitchen and really cooking a beautiful home-cooked meal. It doesn't have to be fancy, it doesn't have to be chef-like, but really nourish your family and to nurture them in the way that we do. And then for men, I'm sure, and please, any of the men listening, tell me this, but they feel nothing greater than knowing they've provided for their family. They've got a beautiful home for their woman and their kids to be in, and that they are able to contribute to the family by bringing that strength and tenacity and an absolute warrior-like status to making sure his family survives and thrives in the best way possible. Wouldn't it be interesting if we could go back or have a look at that in a really, everyone listening to this, perhaps look in their own family unit? Do we knock our husbands when they don't change the nappy properly, or do we celebrate them for giving it a go? Or when a man's out there watching his woman mow the lawns, or he sees that she's mowed the lawns, would we not celebrate her for doing something that was kind of more of a male? And I'm not trying to, gosh, I hope I'm not getting myself into trouble here, but you know what I'm talking about.
It now. I do, absolutely. Yeah.
But I do, hey, listen, here's this quote that I found on Love, because I think ultimately where this went was our real compassion around what happened in Nice and what's going on around the world. But fundamentally what you said, that most of war happens based on fear, certainly not on love. But listen to this, which is a quote from Dr. Brian Weiss. Love is like a fluid. It fills up crevices. It fills empty spaces of its own accord. It is people who stop it by erecting false barriers. And when love cannot fill our hearts and our minds, when we are disconnected from our souls, which consist of love, then we go crazy. Now, I knew love was important, perhaps the most important thing in the world, but it never dawned on me that the absence of love could cause us to lose our minds.
Oh, wow.
And I think acts of terrorism, in a way, is as an act of losing our mind. That is not sane behaviour, regardless of your political or religious drives or intent. That is not sane behaviour. I love this bit, and I've written it up on my wall at the moment. I've got it everywhere. The goal is to learn about love and compassion, about goodness and charity. It is not about becoming famous.
Oh, I love that.
Isn't that beautiful?
Oh, hello, hello, hello. Oh, I love that. That's beautiful. Oh, well, it was actually really fascinating. I'm just going to end with this little note. I went to a festival yesterday in Brisbane, and there
Splendor. Did you go to Splendor, Kaz? Were you there rocking it for 3 days?
No, Presh. No, not Splendor. Yoga Fest.
Oh, sorry, complete opposite.
But I might be going. And there was this guy there who was doing Persian yoga. And he was, oh my God, if you can Google Persian yoga, do it, Kimmy. Google it now. Go ahead. Google it, girlfriend. You are going to fall off your chair when you see what I see. Everybody, when you find your computers, go Google Persian yoga. And there is a guy who, if you look at his YouTube videos, he's in his 50s. And they have these huge big planks of wood and these giant big kettles that they use as weights almost. But it's all about creating precision and skill in the movement. And he did a presentation. Oh my God, this man was pure muscle. He was lean and he was pure muscle. And he stood there in his little Persian pants and no shirt. Mm-hmm. And he did a demonstration that just totally rocked everybody's socks off. And he spoke about how Persian yoga was developed at the same time that Indian yoga was developed. But Persian yoga was developed with the intention of creating warriors, because in India it was a far more peaceful country, whereas Persia and Iran was not a peaceful country. There was a lot of internal wars. And you had to be chosen to study Persian yoga, because a Persian warrior had to have the mindfulness of yoga, therefore to be able to make the intelligent decisions and have the intention of peace, but then still have the body of a warrior. And they had to have the chivalry of a warrior, and they had to have the masculinity of a warrior, but they had to have the sensitivity of a yogi and the gentleness of a yogi and the awareness and connectedness to the earth as a yogi. And whereas in Indian yoga, it was all about connection to the divine and connection to spirit and source. Persian yoga was connection to the planet, connection to the earth, and connection to the animals. And oh my goodness, it was
I'm liking what I'm seeing in the imagery. Hello, Christmas.
Yeah, well, I met him.
And the line, if you want to receive, it says, give it to me. I'm up there. I'm in there. Oh, my gosh.
And, when he was delivering his presentation, he was so captivating, I mean, this Iranian man, Persian man, because Iran is Persian. So he was this very lean, incredibly strong, unbelievably muscular man. But when you see a man stand and speak of being a warrior who's connected to the planet, who's chivalrous, who understands the sensitivities of nature and understands the sensitivities of the woman, but he in himself is trained, looks like, presents as, and is the warrior soul. I can tell you now, there was not a woman in that room that's heart was not on a platter and on offer for that man. It was unbelievable. And it was so perfect to be able to see a masculine man like that so in touch with his androgynousnicity.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I love that word.
It's so not a word. We'll make it a word because I know you've got new words. But there was nothing more compelling about that masculine energy. And I think that if a person can really, and maybe yoga is a key, and that's just something I'm thinking of now, but yoga, the word yoga means harmony, it means unity. And it's unity of one. So unity of me with me and me with you, me with the earth and me with the planet, and me with the cosmos and me with awareness and me with consciousness. It's unity with me with the animals. Everything is around unity. So yoga is not just actually an exercise. Yoga is a way of being. And maybe there's an opportunity for people who are feeling particularly disconnected or particularly lost. Maybe yoga is a way to get in. It's a way in. I don't know.
So. Even my son has asked, there's a beautiful trainer at our gym, and he honestly, Anthony, he looks like a praying mantis, and the way he moves, these long limbs of his, and he's got Jacob now. Jacob's turned around to me. I mean, hello, those of you with teenage sons, but he's turned around and he said, Mum, I think I'd really like to do yoga, because he's understanding now how important his body is from recovery from rugby and recovery from basketball and recovery from all the athletics that he does. Mm-hmm. That one of the keys that Anthony talks about is the movement and the principles of yoga. So he's now asked, and Taylor, as a ballerina, has said, Mum, I've taken Taylor to yoga before, and from a flexible point of view, she nails it. Hands down. There's no problem with any of the flexibility. Yeah. From a strength and a real holding each one of those intrinsic muscles to the core, she saw. So, there was a lot of weakness. And seeing this beautiful Persian warrior type kind of thing, to me, it's about what you were just saying about seeing that man up there. I'm sure men would have the same thing around women, a beautiful, soft, nurturing, amazing woman, but with strength, compassion, connectedness, and love. When you see a woman oozing with love, I mean, when you started this podcast, your giggly, beautiful, amazing voice, I've so missed it, but that is infectious, and I'm sure that everybody feels the same when you're around people that exude love and passion and excitement and harmony and truth, and you can see it in their eyes. And when I watch you delivering Mindset Mastery, and when I see you delivering, and when I hear you on these podcasts, and the same for Cindy, when I hear each of you and each of us go into our truth or our core, when you say, that's why there's such love. That's why there's such a mutual admiration society going on, and that's why we have such a connection with the listeners, because they are us, we are them, and it's such a beautiful, interesting, intrinsic tapestry of the way we all connect through this simple little thing called a podcast. I love it. If we can overcome terrorism or the impact of terrorism by getting back to the true core, which is away from fear or acknowledging and honouring the fear, but working through love, wouldn't that be a key?
Well, you just never know, Miss Kimmy. You just never know. The ripple effect of what can be created with more and more and more of us going through this great wake-up, I think, then, the best is yet to come. And I think, I feel excited when I think about that.
Yeah.
I do. I feel excited when I think about that.
I do too, baby. Oh, I've loved this. Thank you.
I
was so worried about what happened in Nice, and I really wanted to hear your thoughts on that. So I've really loved it. Thank you, beautiful girl.
And you're so sweet. I remember when I sent you a text message and I said, "Are you okay?" And you said, "I don't even know what's happened."
I know, I remember, right?
And I had maybe 8 or 9 people sending me messages saying, "Can you please let us know if Kim's okay?" And I went back to them and I said, "She doesn't even know what's happened." So I said, no, she's all good. She's all good.
Oh, thank you to those of you that texted and messaged me. And, we've always, it comes right into your home when people are in those areas. And not to say that we don't think about the people that are affected, but it does hit a chord, doesn't it? Even closer when someone is in those areas.
Yeah, it becomes very close to home. Yeah, definitely. But we're very glad that you were safe.
Oh, I'm very grateful. Thank you.
Well, to everybody who's been listening to today's show, we would love to hear your comments. We have had a couple of very controversial things to say today. So we would love to hear your comments. Engage in the conversation with us. This has been a fairly intense podcast, and I think that you guys are all going to have your own thoughts and you're going to have your own slant on it. And we want to know. We want to know what you think, because potentially there could be a whole conversation generated out of this that could have a ripple effect beyond your wildest expectations. So don't hold back. Really dive in. Go to our Facebook page at allthews.facebook.com/up-for-a-chat. Or you can also post your comments on allthews.thewellnesscouch.com/up-for-a-chat. So join us here next week, where we're going to bring you more awesome stuff and we're going to take you on the ride of shizzleness. So join us here same time, same station, right here on Up for a Chat, and become part of the ripple effect that's changing the world. We love having you on the ride. Bye, everybody.
This has been a production of TheWellnessCouch.com. Check us out on Facebook and join in the conversation on Facebook.com/TheWellnessCouch. Subscribe to each show on iTunes and check us out on Twitter. The Wellness Couch, streaming wellness into your lives. Whilst the Wellness Couch presenter endeavor to provide accurate and helpful information to their listeners, these podcasts cannot take into account individual circumstances and are not intended to be a substitute for health and medical advice from a qualified health professional. You should always seek the advice of a qualified health professional before acting on any of the information provided by any of the Wellness Couch podcasts.